Hello. Oh, that worked. There's a lot of you, and I'm not a great public speaker, so please bear with me. When we were talking about it with my CTO, and he said, I think you should go, Dan, it'll be just like doing a stand-up. Tip number one, always get somebody else to do some estimating. Don't just rely on one person. So please bear with me. I don't know quite how to get my slides up. There we go. I'll tell you a little bit about me. You'll see, first of all, my job title is COO. I'm not an Agile expert. I don't know all of the how to roll out Agile at scale. But luckily for you, you've got two experts that absolutely do. So I'm just here to entertain you in the middle. I'll tell you a little bit about me, just so you've got the context. I started my career just after I finished university. I did a software development degree. And I worked for Commercial Union on their pensions platform. And whenever I wanted to do a product push, I had to walk around for half a day getting sign-off from everybody. There was literally a little ice cream shop and a Coca-Cola stand halfway around, free to developers, because we get exhausted walking around. And I tell my developers now, they don't believe me. They're like, no, it takes like 2 seconds. What are you on about? So after I left Commercial Union, I went to a company called Logica, again as a developer, and we built prepaid mobile phone billing platforms. And it was slow and took forever and not a lot of innovation. So we moved to Agile, and I was part of the development team that moved to Agile, but also trained up a wider team of people in Agile. And eventually I worked there for a while, and I became the first ever product owner and had the joy of trying to map this waterfall world that the rest of the organization worked in, and this super keen Agile team that had been trained up fresh and all excited. So I worked there for a bit, and then I moved to a company called Experian. I was there for about 10 years, and my job there really was to take these collective portfolio of products and make them commercially savvy. So they were already Agile at this point, but they were using Agile to develop, and I worked with the development team, but there was lots of cool stuff being built, but not much sort of commercial, how are we going to make money out of this? So my job was to try and map those two worlds. And then I moved to Moneyhub. And Moneyhub is I think I might have a slide on it. I'll come back to that. So I'll tell you a little bit about Moneyhub in a moment. So what am I going to do today? So I'll tell you a little bit about Moneyhub, and then what I thought might be interesting is we will tell you about a specific challenge that we've got. So the title of my presentation was Agile at Scale, where the scales don't balance. And the reason for that is because we're quite a small company. I was talking to one of the big consultancy firms, and they told me reliably that when they do RFPs, they're looking for, when they say how many employees have you got, they're looking for 25. Less than 25, and apparently I'm a flaky startup, and more than 25, I'm a bit established and slow and not really innovative enough. So if anyone asks 25, that's how many employees we've got for probably the next 3 years. But our challenge is that we work with, we sell software to enterprises, to very large enterprises, and hence the imbalance. We're quite a small team, but we're working with really, really huge organizations. So just, it's not a sales pitch, I promise, but just to give you some context, because I imagine not many of you have heard of Moneyhub. You might have heard of Bloomberg and RBS, but Moneyhub, I will forgive you for not knowing. So we aggregate financial data. We've got the largest source of data across the UK. We're an AISP, so we're authorised by the FCA to aggregate data. We're also a PISP, which means we're authorised to initiate payments on behalf of users to cut out things like, WorldPay and all of those systems. And we were the first organisation in the world, as far as I'm aware, but certainly in the UK, to publicly allow people to move money using the new PISP capabilities. And we've also we have loads of stuff that we do for companies, but we categorise data as well. So we allow you to categorise your transactions, and we've been doing that for years. We were the first one to have a machine, and as far as I'm aware, the only machine learning-based algorithm for categorising data. And we've been doing that since 2011. You'll notice we're teal. But we've been teal for a long time. Like before it was cool. Now I could charge 10% extra for my software. It's amazing. A product manager for years, I could charge 10% more if only I'd known. Ahead of my time. Anyway, ahead of my time and not as rich as I'd like to be. So, enough about Moneyhub. But we sell to large enterprises, and we sell to enterprises either as a white labeled solution or using APIs so they can build their own front end and build their own cool propositions on top. But Moneyhub's quite small. I mentioned we were about 25 people. We, all of my developers, in fact, the whole organization, I think I'm the only one that knows anything other than Agile. So my whole team are fully Agile, right? And they don't believe my stories about the pre-Agile world, and they definitely don't believe it when I say, when we're working with these large enterprises, and I say, no, that won't work for them. We need to change that. It's not gonna gel. Because they're like, but they should do it like this. It's the modern way. And I'm like, this doesn't work like that. So we're quite a small company, but we are dealing with big companies. And this is probably, if we could have to scale, the tree would be even higher on the left. And we deal with multiple of them at the same time, which makes trying to make a process work really hard. Each one of these, by the way, will be like big banks or employee benefits consultancies or wealth managers, but they all believe that their way is the right way. And me being a little tiny fintech, I only have so much clout. Which means we've got different problems, and hence the topic of this talk, Agile at scale when the scales don't balance. So first of all, I'd say the biggest problem that we always have is people look at us and go, you're small, you can't possibly be good enough. And so we have to put a lot of focus on the rigor that we have. We're ISO 27001 certified. We get audited by the BSI. Whenever we get audited by our clients, we always do really well. And they're always surprised, which upsets me a little bit that they're surprised that we're good. But I get it, right? Because they've not heard of us until fairly recently. But that level of rigor is really important. And that flows through into everything we do. Because we're ISO 27001 certified, we have processes we have to follow, and we follow them. The other slight challenge we have is aligning our methodology. So I mentioned this before, and we're going to cover this in a bit more detail in the case study. But effectively, we have our Agile process, but we're working with these really large clients, all of whom are at a different point on that journey towards Agile. Some have just read the book, had some lovely training by people such as yourself, and they're doing it by the book. They're doing it by the rules. And quite right too, because when you're learning something new, that's always the best way. Through to people that have been doing it for years, and they're like, this is how we do it, and you've got to follow our way. And that's the challenge for us, is how do we align across those methodologies. So I'm going to talk to you now about a really specific client. This is fairly recent. So we were set a challenge in February by a client. This client has over $5 trillion revenue a year. They're operational in 40 countries. They've got over 20,000 employees, and I can't remember if that's just in the UK or globally, but they're massive, they're huge. 25 employees. If anyone asks, 25. So there's quite a scale difference between the two. They use Scrum as their main development methodology, but I believe they're fairly new to it. And so they're very much quoting Agile Manifesto at us, and at that stage of kind of rolling it out and adopting it, which I've been there, I understand it, so it's completely fine, but it's just a different kind of level of evolution. And we were set a challenge. So the challenge was, we'd like to deploy your product, we'd like to extend it with all these cool capabilities that they're after. We needed to get this live, which involves, oh, by the way, there's some legal and compliance and stuff you need to do as we need to work through together, but I'm sure that'll be fine. But we're Agile and we're going to sort it out. And we need this done in 2 months. And I was like, that looks achievable. I think we can do it. And then after the meeting, one of their guys came up to me and said, the quickest we've ever done this is 18 months. Like for something of this size, 18 months. And there's a lot riding on this because the whole organization has placed a bet. Can we do it or not? So no pressure. So I smiled and went, of course we can do it, no problem. Went back to base and said, right, we've got this challenge. We're going to make it happen. It's definitely happening, guys. And my developers all kind of went, you're crazy. And we sat down and we talked about what the potential issues were. And there were a few. I guess the first one for me was that there could potentially be too much emphasis on progress versus process, too much emphasis on the process side. Because already they were going, we need to have a map of, person to person, who's going to map to these roles, who's going to do this, who's going to do that, what's the regular reporting look like, we need to have this meeting, all these things. And we thought there's potential here for this to just become a nightmare. So we had to deal with that. I've probably got slides on this and I'm going to just ad-lib, but we decided that what we needed to do to help them with that is we would front up to their process. We would deliver on what they needed for their process to work. So that's what we did. And I'll cover off how we did it and why and everything else in a minute. The client's development team used Scrum, really passionate about it, and actually really knowledgeable, really knew what they were doing. But the rest of the organization that we needed to deal with, absolutely waterfall. Absolutely felt we've got 18 months to make this work. Like, there's no rush. Contracts, who cares? We'll do them in 6 months' time. And the other one was dependencies on existing third-party providers. And they weren't small. There were tier 1 banks, some of the biggest banks in the UK, pension providers, and a few other similar kind of things. So big organizations that don't move quickly at the best of times. And yeah, they basically said, one of these third parties said, the quickest we've ever done this is 2 months. The quickest we've ever got you through compliance, our compliance, so that we can give you access to the data is 2 months. And I said, what's typical? And they said, about 6 months. So I was like, it's not great. But we're going to make it happen. So what actually happened? What happened along the way? Well, first of all, we had to align with the client on communication. They obviously started doing this mapping of roles. So what we quickly did was we said to them, who's your main person? And they identified their product owner. And we put her in the center of everything we did. We had daily stand-ups with her. We had meetings with her on a weekly basis. We planned out the work with her. We over-engineered all the communication with her. There was no way she didn't know what was going on at any point in time. Whenever there was, what we got her to do is she ran 2 weekly updates for the entire of her organization. We dialed in, but we didn't say a word. We trained her up so that she could demo every piece of kit, that every change, everything that we'd done, she could demo it to the world. It was her baby, her project, she delivered it. And from the rest of her organization's point of view, she built it all from scratch in 2 weeks. They couldn't believe it. And she felt a lot of ownership. She felt really proud of where she got this to and the relationship that she built with the wider team. She was outside of her development team. Which is where we managed to help her change that mindset of it's a development project into this is a go-to-market project. I need to take this to market and I need to make it work. And she felt really strong ownership for it. Internally and unknown to the customer, we switched from a sort of a Scrum methodology. We switched to Kanban. Why did we do that? Because we've got the third parties and we had no idea when they were going to give us access. We had no idea when things were going to change. We had no idea what questions they were going to ask. So by switching to Kanban, we were able to really quickly change and adapt to that changing requirement, that changing input, but still manage the client in a Scrum methodology. So what were the results? Well, I mean, I probably wouldn't be stood here on the stage talking about it if it hadn't gone well, and it did. We managed to actually beat the deadline. More amazingly, though, what I was more happy about was 2 weeks after we did the first initial, so we gave them regular drops. The drop we did after 2 weeks, the product owner showed the sales team. The sales team thought it was amazing, and they said, can we have a play with that? So we said, yeah, and they had a play with it. Unbeknownst to us, they weren't just playing with it, they went and showed it to some prospective clients. And we got a text message from them saying, great news, we've just sold our product against our biggest competitor for 30% more than they're charging, and the only differentiator is what we showed them that you're building. So we were over the moon, very happy. The senior management team, the top people, they kind of assumed we were going to fail. So they budgeted for it to fail and sort of doubled the budget and planned that it was going to take at least 6 months, probably 12 months. So they said, you've done such a good job. We want to extend this product. We want to do more work on it. And they've basically committed now to doing work with us till the end of the year, using that budget that we've basically freed up. So we get to do more work on our product, extend our product, and they get more things to take to market, all within the budget that they'd already planned. And the due diligence, the 2 weeks, the month, we did it in under 2 weeks, the fastest it's ever been done, which is great, because I think we're going to have to integrate with them again in the future. So let's hopefully save that problem. So what did we learn? The customer isn't always right. When they start doing all the maps and the how's this going to work, we had to say, this, if you want this done in under 2 months, like, we need to start work. We can't kind of keep planning to do work. We need to do work. But it's not easy to tell a big customer that. It really isn't. But there are ways of doing it. And there's ways of taking them on the journey. And for me, it was actually about empowering someone in their organization to feel like they had ownership of it, rather than we're an outsourced partner, just get on with it. So it was about making them part of our team. And that's getting the communication right. So not only did we have our product owner, but as we started to get in further down the project and we started getting testers and people like that from their side wanting to get more involved, we set up Slack channels. So we had developers talking to developers, testers talking to testers, everyone helping each other out and making sure that the project went really well. I was actually on holiday when we actually finished, and I couldn't really let it go. It's such an important client, and I was checking in on the comms, and I was almost upset because they didn't need me. Very upsetting. But anyway, but the devs did really well. I was really proud of all of them, and the customer's ecstatic. We all in this room, or you all in this room, I probably don't count myself quite as much as you guys, but we're all working in Agile, right? So we kind of expect things to come, curveballs to come from nowhere. We expect it, we build it in. But actually, as you move up the organization and into project management and what's the status of this project, is it going to be a success? People find it quite stressful because they can't get in, they can't quite see what's going on and they worry about it. So over-communication is important, but what was really funny was at one point, one of our product owner said to me, she says, you all seem so calm. Like, you don't seem to get stressed. And actually our company, we send, or it's optional, but we send anyone that wants to go on it on a mindfulness course. So I told her about the mindfulness course that we go on. And she's taken that back to base, and their management team now are planning to go on a mindfulness course to help with that just deep breath, it'll all be okay, how are we going to make this work? Which is my takeaway from the mindfulness course. I'm sure it's more complicated than that. But that was what I took away from my 8-week course. It was really good. Honestly, I'm not selling it well, but it was really good. I'm a northerner. If I told my family I'd gone to a mindfulness course, they'd probably disown me. But it genuinely is brilliant. And Agile is a set of principles and values. This is what I learned way back in the noughties when we were rolling out Agile for the first time. I was like, this is really cool. It's a really good way of working. How do we make this map into the larger organization? And that's where I thought, these aren't hard and fast rules. They're principles and values, and we need to make them work for our organization. And I wholeheartedly agree. It's about how do you map that into your culture and make it part of who you are and how you work. Which, in summary, is a bit of pragmatism over process. And I think for your senior stakeholders who you're trying to manage, who are looking in, that's the way to get them to think about it. That's what, for me, Agile is all about. It's about making sure that we're pragmatic about what we do, how we do it, we're clear, we're open, and we get stuff done. And on that note, I'll take any questions. Bearing in mind I'm not an expert. No, there's no, sadly, no descaling the scope. That's always the easy thing. And there was no throwing more people at it because that wasn't an option either. And your 3 things, your 3 triangle, fixed. couldn't do anything about it. I have to say it's about being organised, being open and being overly communicative. So with the organisation that said it typically takes 2 months, I said to them, we're going to beat that. We are going to beat it. And they went, well, I'm not sure. And I went, we're ISO 27001, audited, everything you need, we've got ready to go. I need you to help me and get this kicked off as quickly as possible. And they said, well, if you think you're ready to go, we'll come tomorrow. And they turned up on our doorstep and went through it all and went away with, I think we had 2 follow-up questions. And one was can you send us a laptop so we can play with your laptops and see how they're built? And we're like, everything's in the cloud. But fine. So that's the bit that took the time, was them playing with the laptop. But yeah, it's about being organised. So 27001, organised. The scope of what we're going to do, we had it all broken down, planned out as early as possible. We gave it to their team to start to understand what was coming and set expectations. So I'd say it's communication. Everyone understands that we were up against it. So quite often the clients say, oh, we need to probably have a day's brainstorming session. And we're like, we can do that after we finish this first sprint. So where did we de-scope? We de-scoped on the things that didn't matter, like can we have a brainstorming session for phase 2? Like you can, but it'll delay the project a day, or 2 days, or 3 days by the time we'd written it up. So did we get lucky? A little bit, because the customer really bought into the way we were working, but we were really clear up front what we were going to do, how we were going to do it, and then we kept hitting those timescales and hitting the deadline. And really, the bit that was most important, we gave our product owner all the glory, so that she was telling everyone in our organisation, these guys are brilliant, they're doing a great job, and that just bought everyone a bit of calm to get it done.
Did you send her PO training or anything like that?
Well, she was already PO. She was a PO. She's their PO. But I think she was used to, when working with a third party, that she would effectively almost manage the requirements and manage and we were like, we haven't got time to start replanning the product. We've got a product, it's good to go. We've got a feature we want to add in. We're pretty clear on what it is. There's not a lot to it. So rather than waste her time trying to make her feel like she was managing the day-to-day requirements, what we actually said was, now's an opportunity for you to go and product manage or program manage or product own the rest of the organisation. So it's not the development so much that we need, because we didn't really need the help with the development. We needed help managing compliance and people that want to check all the wording and the branding and all the stuff that takes us time when we're working with clients. She went and managed all of that and really did a good job and fed it into us as quickly as she got it. But equally understood fully, she was fully in control of what the requirements were and what we were working on. They just didn't need a lot of looking after. We're now working in a more collaborative way, sort of building some features that are a bit more, need a bit more thought. So we're working with and doing normal planning and everything else, slightly different mode of operation. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Cool.
Hi. Thank you. So I wanted to pick up on the kind of aspect of validation, because having been involved in some of these messy digital deliveries, I think, again, the time frame, it seems to me that there must have been this kind of transference of validation and testing to what you are normally doing, and also accepting that. And I think you touched on the standards that you had to adhere to, but I'm not getting the sense that internally there was any real level of validation, or they'd at least agreed to kind of basically delegate that responsibility to you, which makes it less like, I guess, a standard delivery, and more like, a product that feels a bit more off the shelf. But
great question, and actually was one of the sticking points. So yes, on our side, if you like, a lot of it is product. So a lot of it is just off the shelf, ready to go. It's got automated tests around it. It's been around for many years. Other customers use it, so we know it's pretty stable. And so from our perspective, yes, it's a product off the shelf, no problems. From their perspective, no, it's all brand new. It's all configured to them. It's all looks and feels like their kit. And so their test team, their quality team, they really want to test a whole lot. In parallel, we were extending it by quite a significant margin. We're adding a really major feature that was quite embedded to the product. It used a lot of other components within the product. And that really did need testing. And some of it we can test, we automated test the whole lot, but some of it, genuinely, it would be hard for us to do because it's their data, their compliance, their materials, it's hard to do unless they do it, so they understand what they're looking at. And so that was a really big topic, and that's one where we did have to spend a bit of time with their test lead and our product sponsor and say, look, you can spend your time testing the whole product if you want, and we'll help you do that. But you can also look at all our reference sites and see that we've done that, maybe spend less time on it. So they did some testing on it, not an extensive amount, and they really focused their efforts on the new things. But that was a measure of trust, if you like, in us, that we weren't going to stitch them up. And yeah, they did some tests and they asked us lots of questions. So they weren't just ignoring it, they definitely did more. And they scaled up their test team as it went on. So I would say their test team is bigger than our development team now, as they were testing it all and making sure they're really comfortable with it. They're highly regulated as an organisation as well. So, you know, they kind of have to make sure they're happy with it, not just me saying, it'll be all right. Although it will be all right. Does that help? Cool.
Did they have the requirements gathered beforehand? Did they know like what they more or less want?
They knew conceptually what they wanted. I think there were a couple where they went, and we just want it to be wow, which as a supplier is always my worst nightmare when someone says I want it to be wow, because I've then got to second guess what wow is for them. So no, I wouldn't say they had all the requirements. No, we had to walk them through that. They had a business objective. That's what they actually had. And we'd had an RFP from them. So we'd gone through the RFP process and gone to tender with them. And as part of that, we gave them some mock-ups of what they would be getting, but not really. What we've actually delivered doesn't quite look like the mock-ups, because as we've got into the requirements with them, we've understood it a bit more and done a bit more. So no, not really. We've had to be quite responsive on that, yeah. And it'll be more so in the next phase, because that's where they're really getting into. And we want more wow. But, yeah.
Maybe just have one more. So were you, like your 25 staff, were they only working for this client?
No. We've got lots of other clients to try and keep happy in parallel. So we were doing 3 major new client deployments in parallel, as well as some existing clients that we needed to kind of keep happy. So what we do, though, so we have a couple of things. One is, I call them friends of Moneyhub, but we have a quite wide network of people that we bring in as and when we need them. I've got a designer who's amazing. He actually designs glasses for celebrities as one of his businesses. He's brilliant. But he helped us with the design. So when, as I say, we gave them some mock-ups, but when we actually got into the project, we brought him in and said, help us design this and make it really work. And again, we brought in a couple of extra developers that we've kind of friends with to help manage the workload, but people swap in and out of our projects all the time. So we bring in the right person with the right skills for any given task. So throughout the project, so the client was thinking of it as 2-week sprints. There was no 2 developers the same, like no, not 2, but no one developer was on that project all the way through, and none of them were, so they swapped and changed depending. The CTO actually took the lead though. He was the one consistent, keeping an eye on making sure that we delivered consistently in terms of technically, and I kept an eye on it from a product management perspective, making sure that what we delivered was a product that worked. Does that answer that one? Cool, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I like what you said about pragmatism over process, because I've recently joined a team working with a client who they seem to kind of, they've got us working in an agile manner, but they seem to want to still be working in waterfall, because they're still looking at basically building out a whole product. And I've tried to explain to them, and I think previous Scrum Master has as well, that it has to be prioritized as most important features. Because, and I think, how do you get past that challenge? But as I said, I think originally you said that people were telling you it's going to take longer, and you've tried to focus them on pragmatism versus process. But I see similar challenges to what I'm facing, where, you know, somebody's already said this, you need to focus on a minimum viable product or a minimum viable solution, and they don't seem to be getting this. They still think they're working in an agile manner, whereas the development team is, but we still don't have visibility on their most important features. And I've said to them, use Moscow or must-haves. You know, everything else can be future product enhancements, whatever else, but you need a viable product to be able to go to your business and say, this is what we've produced. We can add meat to the bones later, but they don't seem to get that. And I think when you said about pragmatism versus process, it seems to be very much where they were saying it was going to take 18 months and it takes this, and they don't seem to believe, you know, that you can enhance as you go along, but things need to work, you know.
Look, it's really difficult, and in different organisations you get, and I've worked in organisations where I've had that, and I've worked in this relationship kind of as a supplier. It is really difficult, but it's about putting yourself in their shoes. Why are they saying that? And what motivates them? I mean, I'm a big fan. If I had my time again, I'd go back and do a bit of psychology at university, because I think it's fascinating. But put yourself in their shoes. So in our instance, we definitely had that this time. But playing back to them things like working out what their lever is. So with our product owner, when we first got going, it was about, we can make you look really good here. We can make your team that you've newly got going look amazing. Let's focus on that. We didn't say it like that, obviously, but that's what you're trying to do, is get them to think. With other stakeholders, it might be focus on the money, focus on the timescale, focus on the business case. But that's my product management hat, I guess. It's thinking, you know, what's the stakeholder, what's their motivation, and how can I address that motivation to kind of guide them to where they want to be. It's not where I want them to be, it's where they want to be. Ultimately, they're the customer. They can delay for 4 months if they want, but I don't think it's what they wanted for their business case.
I think from my understanding of this, and I'm new to this, so I've just taken over from somebody else, is that it's the case of the customer seems to think, well, I throw money at them, and I can delay, and I'll go live next year. And I'm thinking, eventually a competitor is going to turn around and bring a product.
Should we catch up in the break, because I'm getting waved at for time.
Yeah, can we move on to Darren now? Any questions you have, just ask at the end.